Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. By and for school administrators, this podcast is intended to promote candid discussion and insight about our great profession. My name is Rick Sola, and as Communications Director for the Kansas Principals Association, I am the host, but I am certainly not the feature. Sit back, take a sip, and enjoy. This is Cool Coffee with Kansas Principals. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Cool Coffee. Today I am with Principal Mr. Brian Barackman from Indian Trail Middle School in USD 233 Olathec Public Schools. Welcome, Brian.
How we doing? Thanks so much for having me.
Doing all right. It's been, we're recording this at the end of a Monday, and I think it's been a pretty good Monday. So I'll start with a quick transparency on this episode. Mr. Barickman and I go way back, and we actually shared a meeting together this afternoon. We had a meeting over at the district office, but we share a district. At one point, we shared a school, and we do go way back. So I've used this term before, but this is kind of like a Principals episode. Got a principal here on the show here with Mr. Barickman. So, but again, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, I can't believe that I'm finally here. I've been listening to every episode, and it's an honor to be here. So thanks for having me. And
the software I use for this can detect lying on the show. And so I don't know that you've really listened to every episode, but no. It's awesome that you're here. But before we get started here, a quick show shout out. A reminder that if you click into the show and check the show notes, there's information about the show, ways to contact our guest, and a way to leave feedback or even to contact me with topics or questions or guest ideas. Would love to get all of those. Some of our shows have been created by the feedback from those who have listened. Also, give us a like or a follow on your favorite podcast platform. Help spread the word about the insightful stories from the amazing principals all across this great state of Kansas. Like us, follow us here at KPA's Cool Coffee. And so I feel like that's a really great lead-in to really someone I have come to learn is the most beloved principal in the world, and that's Brian Barackman.
Oh my goodness! That I can see the lie detector now. I see it going off now. Well, that's high praise coming from you. I appreciate it. However, not true. I appreciate it.
Well, so I think you'll cover this here. We will start with your road to the chair, but our road has crossed paths in a very good way. But it's fun to hear, every principal I've had on this show, they talk about what it is that led to them being where they're at presently. And we're all so varied on how we got here. And I always find it interesting, but let's start with that. Brian, where did you start in education and what led to you being at Indian Trail?
Absolutely. Well, I think that story starts with my own middle school career going to school here at Indian Trail. And I didn't know that the stars would align down the road one day, but thankfully they did. So as a middle school kid, never thought that I would be a principal. I wanted to be a biologist, and then I went to K-State and learned that, I taught swimming lessons, was one of my early life jobs, and I learned to really love teaching, and I decided to combine those two loves of science and teaching and become a science teacher. So I taught 7th grade science, mostly biology, at Santa Fe Trail Middle School in Olathe for about 6 years. And that whole time I knew not only did I have a passion for education, but I had dreams of being an administrator. I saw great administrators throughout my career that I just saw the impact that they had not only on me, but on so many families and so many students. And it was always interesting to me that, you want to have an impact on the community, and then seeing people in those positions have an even broader and wider impact, and think, man, I could, what kind of difference could I make in a position like that? Or what kind of help could I provide? What kind of servant leader could I be to even more people, and give back to the community that gave me so much growing up. So I kind of had that dream. And then after 6 years of teaching, yours truly, Mr. Rick Sola, gave me an opportunity to get into my first assistant principal position at Prairie Trail Middle School, and I was assistant principal there for 3 years. And then there was an opening at Indian Trail, which, as I mentioned, was my alma mater. So I loved my time so much at both Santa Fe Trail and Prairie Trail. But when there's you have an opportunity to potentially go back to your home school, I knew it was going to be fun and exciting to be back, but I didn't realize just how special and how special it would be and how connected I would feel to a building. So I jumped at the opportunity to come back. I served as assistant principal here for 1 year, and now this is my 4th year as head principal. And I can tell you, every day it's still new memories pop up for me. Like, I will be in a classroom and I'll have an epiphany of, oh my gosh, this was the same room in 7th grade when this happened to me. And I remember reading Holes in This Room used to be a language arts room. Or I'll turn a corner and have a memory of a interesting passing period that I had one time. So it's just it's really, really fun and special to be back here and to serve this community in this capacity.
So you said that you were a student at Indian Trail back in the day, and so going back there, does it feel totally different, like a whole different school? Or when you walk those halls, is it kind of like, man, this is my old stomping grounds? Like, do you still feel that? Because I know there's been some changes there, some construction and all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so much of both. Like, there's so many memories that flood back immediately, especially walking back into this principal's office I've been in a couple times. but then also there's memories that you forget about, that you don't think about, and then all of a sudden it just hits you one day. You'll be like, since some of the classrooms look so different and are different subject areas and things like that, you don't immediately recognize them. But then in one moment you might have this memory flood back, like, oh my gosh, this was Miss So-and-so's room, and I remember doing this, or meeting this friend, or and one other special thing in my office, I have the class photo from my last year here, and there are people in that photo who are, who I was standing up in their weddings. There's people in that photo who I've been friends with since we went to school here, and they are currently working here with me, which is really special. And there's some, how life is. There's some sad stories on that too, and it's just a good reminder for me every morning of the reason that we're here, to make a difference in those people's lives. And we were those kids, and that's why this work is so important. So
yeah, that's really cool. And I feel like maybe we've talked about this before, but I remember when I first started teaching and I came back to the district where I graduated high school and went all the way through, I was teaching alongside my former teachers. And I found that really bizarre at first, because, I mean, who am I, some snot-nosed kid coming out of college teaching alongside these veterans? Well, and then fast forward to administration, and there were still some teachers
we're still thinking that about you.
Yeah, well, yeah, that kind of goes without saying, but no, like, so you're in these leadership roles. Were you in a position where you are with some teachers that either maybe were your teachers, or you had some of those connections that you were little Brian Barackman to them, and now all of a sudden you're I don't want to say the boss, but you're the decision maker. You're making decisions, and you're in a position of leadership. And did you experience that at all in your road in administration?
Absolutely, yeah. And when you ask that question, my mind goes to, like, oh, could that be an awkward dynamic or anything like that? And I have found it to be nothing but enriching those relationships. I think, not only have I been blessed with such amazing teachers throughout my path, who are just a wonderful people and are just so excited to see you coming back to Olathe, coming back to the profession. But I think luckily I was a quiet kid and a good student, so there was no grudges it carried against me over the times. But it really is, I think, at least from my perspective, I don't know what they would say, but from my perspective, it has just been really special, to be like, man, I respected you so much as a teacher. I learned so much from you, and now we're hand in hand making a difference together. And how cool is that? Who listening to this wouldn't want one of their students to come back one day and help them make a difference for the community we care so much about? I mean, that's has been my experience. And I do have one funny story from this, though. My mom is wonderful, and she is a collector. And I was able to find one of my old grade cards from a teacher here at Indian Trail, and I had all A's and one B, and it had written in there two missing assignments, and then my grade. And so I brought that down to the teacher's classroom, and I put the grade card on her desk, and I said, my mom would like to have a conversation with you about this about this grade. So
That's
things
awesome.
like that have been, it has been just a positive way to build that relationship coming in this role, and just to know that, we've known each other for a long time, and we're now able to do it together, which is pretty neat.
So how many years did you teach before making that transition?
I taught science for 6 years, and then it was assistant principal for 4.
And maybe present company excluded here. I know that transition to administration, was at Prairie Trail where I was, and truly those were 2 extremely fun years. We had a really great time. But was there ever a moment early on in administration where you felt like, oh man, this is not what I thought? That maybe really kind of put to challenge that decision of making that career change, if you will, into administration?
Well, I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got it was an assistant principal at the time who was talking to me about when do you make the jump from teaching to administration? Is it too soon for me? It was probably like my 4th or 5th year. I was dabbling with the idea, and his advice was, go while you still love teaching, because I think people can feel when an administrator has a love for the classroom and a passion for teaching, and when they don't. So I that's why I went when I felt like it was pretty early. 6 years of teaching, I understand that's pretty early, but that advice made me think, what, I'm going to bring that passion that I still have for the classroom, to this role. So to answer your question more specifically, I don't think there's been a time where I said, man, I don't know if I should have done this, if I regret this, but there are absolutely times where I miss teaching. I loved my teaching career. I loved getting to know those students, on a different level, than we often get to. You get to know your group of students so deeply and so well, and those relationships, and watching them learn throughout a unit, throughout a school year, all the things that everybody loves about teaching, I definitely often miss. But that doesn't mean that I regret making this decision. I am incredibly happy as an assistant principal and a principal. I think I look back to those early administrators that were inspiring to me and think like, man, they don't just make a difference for these kids in this classroom. They make a difference for every student in this building, every teacher in this building, every member of this community. And I don't know if I'm doing that, but I'm sure trying. So
yeah. I really like that answer. There are definitely times where it's easy to miss teaching. There's a lot about teaching that is wonderful. I have said on here before, I love what I do. I feel like I am so lucky to I've had the best job, and fortunate to do it. But there are certainly times where teaching's fun. There's a whole different level of relationship that you can have with students. It still exists as principals, and that's been a topic on here before as well. But that teacher-student relationship is pretty neat. So no, I really like that. you are doing some really cool things at Indian Trail. I saw a picture of you surface over the weekend covered in paint or dust, or you were like every color of dust. What was that all about? What was going on over the weekend?
Yeah, we had a little bit of fun this weekend. So I'm sure you've all seen something like this before, but it was a color run fundraiser. So it's one of those where the students will run laps, kind of like a 5K, but along the way, you throw different color paint on them as they go around, and it was the final celebration of the school fundraiser that we've been doing, and all surrounding our house system.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it looked like people had a really good time throwing stuff at you, like especially the color. Like they got their money's worth out of it, is what it looked like.
Yeah, I would say I was coming out pretty clean, and then toward the end, a couple students noticed that I was dodging a lot of the paint, so they grabbed a couple bottles and surrounded me, and I didn't. I'm still cleaning out paint dust out of my car. It's all over my back right now from the weekend still.
Well, you brought up the house system, and that's what I wanted to get into. Is you got a really cool thing going at Indian Trail that truly is unique in Olathe. I think you're the only school, as far as I know, that at least middle school for sure, but if not all schools. But you've employed a house system that was developed out of visiting the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, and you went. Maybe it was your first year as principal. You went down there. I don't know if training's the right word, experience, but talk about that experience down at the academy down in Atlanta, and then what it is that's going on at Indian Trail with your house system.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about it, and then I would love to brag on my staff for how we began doing this house system at Indian Trail. So if anyone's familiar with the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, our system is essentially built around there. So in summary, those of you familiar with Harry Potter, think broad strokes Harry Potter. When students come to the school for the first time, they are sorted into one of 4 houses, and every student gets to be in a house, and they remain in that house all 3 years of their time here. And same with staff members. So the 4 houses, they're different from the Harry Potter houses. Like I said, it's kind of just broad strokes, but each house has its own colors, its own crest, its own songs, its own cheers, chants, symbolism, traditions, and it's just a really special, unique experience from each 4 houses. Then the goal is that since you stay in that same house all 3 years of your time here, you not only get to meet the students that are in your classes, but you deepen your middle school experience by getting to know students in other grade levels that you wouldn't otherwise have crossed paths with because they're in your house, and other teachers that you can build relationships that you don't necessarily have for class, but you get to interact with at all of our house activities. So the general idea is, number one, to add a fun system to kind of organize everything we do, but most importantly, it's to make students feel connected to the school, and that just adds so many other layers and opportunities for them to feel connected to the school. And then it's the keynote of our PBIS system. So when students do, our values of ownership, unity, respect, and safety, that spells ours, and we say this house is ours. That's our system, a nod to the house system. Students get, not only will you get points that you can use in our school store as an individual, but any points that you receive also go to your house. So similar to Harry Potter, at the end of the school year, there's a house cup that the winning house gets, and like a ceremony where we celebrate them. And we've done things like each week, the house that's in the lead, you get to fly your flag out on the flagpole. We have a house leaderboard in the main hallway so people can track your progress and get some friendly competition going. But we do have a motto. It's 4 houses, 1 family, 1 Cougar family. So we got to make sure that we can have some friendly rivalries, but that it is a positive behavior intervention system, right? So we got to keep it positive. So we support each other. All houses are great. And it's just a really, really special thing that it does come from the Ron Clark Academy. So all credit for these ideas and structures go to them. But I do think we're one of not very many schools in the area that use this system, and it just really adds a special layer of both fun and connection and community and excitement to everything we do.
What's an example of like a cross grade level activity or something being done at the school?
Yeah, so I'll give you 2. One is a more fun one. So my house is the House of Amistad, which is Spanish for friendship, and our main color is red. And since we are in Chiefs Kingdom, we do one of our after-school events. One of our traditions is on a night where we have a Chiefs game, like a Monday night football or Thursday night football. We'll do a tailgate. So we'll tell everyone in the school to wear red. We'll grill hot dogs. We'll play yard games. And the students from Amistad are all invited to attend for free and eat for free, and have a little after-school bonding activity with teachers and students of Amistad at all grade levels. So a really fun way to have a little community cookout with our House of Amistad.
So that's just the Amistad students and staff.
Correct. Yes. Each house has activities that they do after school, all very different traditions. So other houses will have their opportunities to do something, a bonding activity like that. But that one would be just for Amistad.
So does each team or house, does each house have a kind of a leadership board? Like, who's organizing that? Is that for you as administrator, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, this is one thing I would love to brag about our staff. Our teachers, and everyone gets into the house system. Teachers, custodians, paraprofessionals, nurse, counseling office, everyone is just makes this so much fun and so special. So we are blessed to have a community that really has fun with it and believes in the power of the house system. So we have tons of people who are on board for planning these activities, and I think the reason it works so well in our building, and the biggest shout out to our staff, is this structure came from our staff. It started with a 7th grade team that won a grant to go visit the Ron Clark Academy and fell in love with everything. If you ever have an opportunity to do any professional development down there, go, because it is a really special place. It'll get you excited about education and leave you with tons of concrete ideas you can bring to your school. So that group of 7th grade teachers went down there on that grant, brought the house system back to just that 7th grade team. The following year, it grew to the 7th grade participated in the house system, and then everyone saw how amazing it was. So then the year after that, it expanded to the whole building, and now I believe we're on our 6th year, I believe, doing the house system as a whole building. So that was one of the things that makes it so special and gives us so much buy-in. Is it was teacher discovered, teacher organized. It all comes from within, and it's something special for us.
So what's another example, a non-Amistad example of activity going on?
Well, those ones don't matter as much, right? No, I'm kidding. 4 houses, 1 family. 4 houses, 1 family. Another maybe more academic example, our half days. So our district has 4 or 5 half days throughout the school year. So instead of just doing, like 15, 20 minutes of each class period on those days, our entire days are structured around our house system. So we will, one thing we did, like my first couple years especially, was we wanted to have some, academic, social, emotional time with small, like family style groups with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade mixed students. So we would spend the first 20 minutes or so of those half days in those groups with those, students of all 3 grade levels, but within your house, to do some house bonding activities, and also maybe some social emotional lessons, maybe some, school spirit activities, maybe some academic activities, and then to kick off the half day. So we tried to, really find every opportunity for them to build those extra connections that they wouldn't otherwise have. And then the rest of our half days we did, like house assemblies, our house cheers. The house is split up and do, different activities that they, each of them have different traditions, like I said, that they do for those. So that's another example of how we might use that house system that way.
It seems like a really natural kind of framework for our PBIS. So we're in a district that's 100% PBIS adopted. Every building's got a system. And this just seems to dovetail right into it. Very almost seamlessly, it sounds like.
Yeah, we were pretty much, executing the PBIS plan, before we adopted this. We were giving all the stuff that was in place before we became a PBIS school. We were, we had the kids in houses. We were giving house points. They were getting points toward their house cup. We were trying to point out the positive behaviors to give the points for. You never take points away. Like Dumbledore, takes 20 points away from Slytherin. That would probably be your house there, Mr. Sola, for their bad behavior. It's all about. It's all about.
I invite
positivity.
you onto the show, and this is uncalled for.
You knew what you signed up for.
I know.
Yeah, but it's all about positivity, rewarding students for their good choices, not only kindness, but also working hard in the classroom, academic side of things as well.
Do you ever come across, I'm just trying to think, maybe a principal head here of like possible challenges. Like you mentioned something really cool, a tailgate for your Amistad family or your Amistad house. Do you ever get feedback from students like, oh, I wish our house did this, or does that ever creep up to where there's like,
Sure.
house envy, if you will, of wanting to be on the other team or whatever?
Sure. So I think, that does naturally come up sometimes. And I think that our culture of 4 houses, 1 family, we kind of have established ahead of time, like, hey, we're going to treat each other with positivity. So that kind of culture helps stay some of that. However, that happens sometimes. And I notice it the most when the first house that has an activity of the school year, then somebody has to go first, right? So the other 3 houses sometimes at that time will say, hey, I wish I could go to that. I want to be a part of that. And, until we say, hey, you know what? I know it's going to be really fun. I'm so sorry. However, I know that the House of Revere is doing this awesome activity here in a couple weeks, and I'm so jealous that you get to do that. But you're going to love that with you and your House of Revere. So, and then once they have their own activities, people start to understand, oh, okay, all 4 houses have these really cool special things. And while they might be different, everybody has their, has their fun, and everybody has their opportunity. And then we have done many things. Usually first semester, we do our own house activities. And then a lot of times second semester, we'll do some joint activities. So like we did Amistad and Isabindi did a joint glow party one year, and then Alterismo and Revere did a kickball tournament. So we'll do some stuff together as well to keep it interesting for the students, but there is a little bit of that. But once they get the taste of their own house activities, they realize, oh man, every house has its special, unique things, and I'm okay with that.
Well, one thing that's really neat as an outsider to Indian Trail, but very close in proximity, driving by the building and seeing the flag of whatever house that's up there. I just think that is really cool to seeing the flag flying. And then on your sign out front, you've got the logos for each of the houses on your sign. And I just think that's a really positive reminder and kind of advertisement, if you will, to your family, your community, of just an additional great thing going on in the building. Because I'm sure the kids are going home talking about their house and what it is that is going on in the building with their house.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say shout out to Miss Sham and Miss March for making those custom-made marquee signs with our house symbols on it. It was pretty cool. I was pretty excited when those worked out. They engineered those up special just for us. So, but yeah, and I do think too it adds to, you want your students to come home and have a really memorable first day at school. And every school I've ever been at did an amazing job of making that day not only fun but special and meaningful for their students. But like I said, this just adds a whole nother layer to, not only is it the balloons and the fog machines and the drums and the excitement to figure out what house am I in, but man, to know that this is going to be where I belong for the next 3 years, not only in the Cougar family, but also in my house family, just adds a whole nother layer of, special feeling for those kids.
Well, that's awesome. I will, in our show notes, I'll put a link to the Academy for those who are interested. Like I said, it's unique here in Olathe. You're the only school that has it and are doing it, and you're doing a really nice job with it. 6 years into it, that's a long time in our field. Things can come and go multiple times over in 6 years, and so that speaks volumes.
It speaks volumes of not only how fun it is, but of our teachers. They really make it special. They've bought into this. They have fun with it. It means a lot to them. The costumes that our teachers have built over the years to wear on our half days and assemblies have gotten pretty elaborate. But what it really should. When I reflect on that, I reflect on the type of staff that we have that care so much and are willing to be so bought into our school, our community, our culture. Not to mention it's changed how we've organized a lot of things, like for example, for pep assemblies we don't sit by grade level like normal. You always sit with your house, so you have your that mixed group, and there's a lot of little examples like that of just we do things by house, not necessarily by grade level or by homeroom or anything like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting, kind of breaking down the barriers of grade level, because that could be, for sixth graders, intimidating when they start school and they see the big eighth graders walking around, but to have them all on the same team, that's really neat. Well, thanks for sharing about that. And before we get off of this here, we are on our way, you and I and our 8 other counterparts, on our way to the KPA conference here very soon in Wichita. And this is your first time going to KPA, is that correct?
Absolutely, and I'm very excited. It's I got to look ahead at the list of the sessions, and what's so exciting for me is I've been to I don't want to say a lot of conferences, but several different types of conferences here and there, and as an administrator, I'm always looking for which ones of these apply to me, or which ones of these if there's a lot of specialized conferences and a lot of specialized sessions. And what I'm really excited about KPA is it's a conference that's tailored to us. So I'm looking through that thinking, oh man, I wish I could go to almost all of these sessions, and how am I going to pick between? I'm not searching for the couple that may apply. I'm like trying to narrow it down as best I can to the ones I want to go to, and I'm excited for the opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be a good time, and going with our group, I know that divide and conquer aspect is probably a likelihood. Some of the other value to it is just sitting in those sessions with principals from other districts all over Kansas, and having those shoulder partners when we don't share a district, but we share the issues and we share the topics and things that come up. It's going to be a great time. Really looking forward to it, and I'm excited for the next few days here when we get down to Wichita. But Brian, I can't help but notice over your shoulder here on the camera, it looks like a Dundie Award. And so
I actually have a few of those. My favorite one, I would say, I got when I was your assistant principal. It was from a student, and the plaque on the Dundee says "Assistant to the Principal," which I thought was pretty clever. So that's my favorite one.
I never told you that I made him give that to you.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. No, I don't see that. I don't see that apple you got back there. But no, I was going to ask you.
You're the Dwight in this situation. I hope.
I know. Okay, this is totally cold here. Let's see. What leadership traits can you relate to most from Michael Scott?
Man, some days it feels like the one where you always feel like you put your foot in your mouth. No, man, I fortunately, I would hope, don't have too many qualities like his, because he probably should have been fired 1,000 times over. But at the end of the day, I'll say he always cared. He loved what he did, and maybe that's the one. Because this job, as you all listening know, any job in education can be really hard and really stressful, and really, you see so many sad things that these poor kids are going through, but at the end of the day, working with kids is fun. And that's what's so rewarding. And the servant leadership portion of this is, of course we all have bad days and hard stretches, but the pros far outweigh the cons. The good far outweighs the bad. The happy fun days and happy fun activities we get to do with the kids far outweigh the tough ones. And so I guess me and Michael Scott, at the end of the day, love the people that we're with and the career that we get to participate in.
Well, that's a good answer, and I was kind of hoping I would stump you a little bit, but no, that's an excellent answer, and awesome to hear. And well, we're going to find out how good my editing is at the end of this, because if you've listened all the way through this and didn't notice a hiccup in the show, that's great. That means my editing was good. But if it felt a little clunky in the middle, the principal job just sometimes kind of creeps in, and even while we're recording. So there was a little interruption that had to be paused for the show. And so I just wanted to point that out.
To be clear, it was on Rick's end, not on my end. I've been nothing but professional over here.
Well, I didn't say it was unprofessional. I said it was just a principal matter that needed some attention. So that's how it goes. Well, Brian, you've done a lot of really positive sharing and bragging on your people. As I like to end our show, any final words on the Indian Trail community that you want to just share for the people here listening to Cool Coffee?
I just want to say, number one, Rick, thank you for the opportunity. And number two, I know I've said it a couple times, but, we have a staff that I just can't say enough about. This is a title building, and that can have extra challenges and can, be a tough position, but we also have very low turnover. And I don't think that has anything to do with what I'm doing. I think it has everything to do with the kind of people that they are. They're the type of people that are willing to go above and beyond for students, and they're the type of people that are willing to stay after school to help. And I've seen so many people give their own time and money just to help families with such, and unique needs in different ways. And, it's just, it's inspiring to see, and it's a blessing to be around those types of people that, if they do that for other students, and they're doing it for each other, and they're going to do it for you too in your time of need. So we got a wonderful group here, and like I said, it's everything not anything to do with what I'm doing, everything to do with the type of people that they are, and I'm lucky to call myself part of the Cougar family. Yep.
Well, as a show, this podcast, being one that's intended to really just celebrate what a principal is, the principalship, the job and role of principal. I appreciate hearing you say it's not what you're doing, it's the people you're with. And I know that you have great people over there. But I would also say, don't sell yourself short. You're doing amazing things over there, and people like to work for good principals. And I know you're a really good principal. And,
thank you.
I'm going to go, that's the nicest thing. I might even have to edit this out. I don't know how comfortable I feel about saying that. But no, truly, Brian and I, we got to know each other over the 2 years at Prairie Trail. But you're doing really, really great things. And people like to be in buildings where they know their principal loves their job, like you said, that Michael Scott quality there. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I had some great role models along the way. We'll leave it at that right there.
No, please go on. No. Hey, I really appreciate your time. I know it's really busy. We're actually going to site council tonight, the district site council, so I'll see you here in a little while. But looking forward to a couple days down in Wichita and learning with you and all the other principals in Kansas.
Absolutely. Anybody that's listening to this that goes down to the conference and you want to talk house system or the office, I'm your guy.
Sounds good. Hey, Brian, have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Check the notes section for more information on this episode and to learn more about the KPA and its mission to develop and support all principals through optimized learning, collaborative leadership, networking, and service. Be sure to check back in for our next episode and spread the word about cool coffee with Kansas principals. Catch you next time.